Hey guys, Queen Crazy here, and it's not usual that I do a video just out of the blue like this, but if you see the word breaking up there in the top of the bar, then you know exactly why I do these videos, because they are apparently big news stories. Well, I just went on Facebook, went to WrestleZone.com, had a look around and really found something of interest that should give WWE a wake-up call, because apparently, and according to Justin the Bar, of course, who is hardly ever wrong with his sources because he knows a lot, he says here that WWE's Vengeance pay-per-view was held in October, garnered 130,000 buys, which is actually pretty fucking low, isn't it? Isn't it? Not just that, it only managed to get 70,000 in North America. And apparently only one pay-per-view is worse than that, and that's December to Dismember, which only got 55,000. Obviously, because it was shit, wasn't it? Is this a wake-up call to WWE where they can look at themselves and say, isn't it about damn time that we got rid of this crazy shit that we do by putting 2 pay-per-views in 1 month? This should be a wake-up call, because when you've got 2 weeks to build a show, that really one thing, there are 2 things wrong with that. One, there's too much to do, and second, you put so much pressure on your creative team to push out what should be a month's worth of feud building in 2 weeks. Which also puts pressure on the wrestlers, puts pressure on everything else, and it shows the ship cracking. Now, I know everyone's saying, and I know people have been saying, that even 12 pay-per-views a year, 1 for each month, is too much. And personally, I could safely say I agree with you. Because, to me, as always, I often am nostalgic about it when brand-specific pay-per-views existed. Because you had 2 weeks to build for a pay-per-view, unless it was one of the big 4. That made more sense to me as a scheduling concept, giving each brand shows to build for. I mean, sure, the pay-per-view buys weren't always the biggest, and for the most part, the storylines apparently either bored people shitless by the time they got to the matches, no one cared. But then again, you need better booking staff and better creative team for that, don't you? I keep thinking 12 a year, 1 each month is fine. If you can pace things right, you can do 12 pay-per-views a year. Because 4 of them are going to be big sellers. 2 of them more than usual. Well, 3 if you count Money in the Bank, Rumble, and Mania are always going to sell well. Doesn't matter where you are. But this historically low buy rate should be a wake-up call that you shouldn't put more than 1 show a month. It's just, I thought it was a stupid idea in the first place. 2 shows in October. I've never been a fan of it. And in all fairness, it showed that WWE were doing too much. When they had 16 pay-per-views, or something around that number, and I think 2005, 6-ish, I knew they were overstepping the mark. And it just didn't work. So they obviously cut back a few. 14, of course, they had the New Year's Revolution and Cyber Sunday in January and October, respectively. Sorry, I'm a bit of a cold here. And that's obvious that they would do something like that. They would have one before the Rumble, which I thought worked out alright. I actually didn't mind that. It had 3 weeks between Rumble. I didn't really care, because the Rumble could take on a life of its own, and that leaves New Year's Revolution to not get dwarfed by it. Cyber Sunday, unique concept. At least it worked in principle until you find out WWE rigged the things to get the matches they want. But in all fairness, I mean, that at least worked to some extent until they realised that it wasn't working because it didn't draw enough buys. If a pay-per-view doesn't draw enough buys, kill it, but I wouldn't kill Vengeance off. It wasn't the name that killed it, it was the lack of build and the lack of good booking on that part. It was a boring pay-per-view, but it wasn't the worst of the year by a long stretch. That was Capital Punishment, but seriously, if you're ever thinking of scrapping a pay-per-view, scrap Capital Punishment and put Vengeance in that slot. Put Vengeance in the June slot. Be very happy, I think, if you put a pay-per-view with established history into the May slot, where into the June slot where it used to be. it would get a lot more people interested, going, okay, it's in a traditional slot, we like that. It always does well when you know a pay-per-view is coming up. It's always good. But will WWE make a U-turn on this? I think they will cull Vengeance, take it out of the calendar entirely, and then stick Hell in a Cell later in the month. And that's probably what they're going to do. Because knowing WWE, they will say, well, this pay-per-view isn't getting enough buys, we have to get rid of it. Then probably replace it with something else, or leave the space in the market untapped. Or something else that Vince McMahon would say. If the impression doesn't come off too well, I'm still I'm still suffering from a cold and recovering from Alter Bridge on Tuesday, which the t-shirt should say otherwise. But the thing is, it's just my point where this should be something me knocking on the door and say, hey Vince, maybe you should cut down on your schedule a bit. Because that also goes to cause for its live tour as well. Because you can't expect them to fly to the Far East and then come straight back for a Raw taping and then... Because I remember this, I'm going on for a completely different argument here. But when I was younger, getting into this product, I always thought that WWE wrestlers only were in America and they came over to countries for a specific period of time and then did a tour in your country, never really advertised wherever else, and you only knew they were coming to it. So basically, it felt like an Americanized Central product that you'd expect from America. They're so proud of having something in their own country. But then when I realised, they were doing tours all over the world during the time when they did Monday Night Raw shows, I kept thinking to myself, this isn't good for their health. And that laborious travelling schedule, along with the bulked amount of pay-per-views, it doesn't bode well for them. I'm amazed they managed to keep themselves physically fit and mentally fit in this, with this schedule around them. It makes me think they could try and please too many international markets. The reason why the Global Warming Tour in 2002 was so successful is because they haven't been to Australia in forever. You can't guarantee to go to certain places at least once a year. I mean, sure, in some places where you've got a sizable audience that really give a shit, like Italy or Spain or Mexico or the United Kingdom, sure, you can take the dive to go there. But if you obviously know you're just trying to branch out and you're dealing with human lives, don't bother. It doesn't make sense to me. And the touring, I think, not only the pay-per-view schedules to be cut down, but just the touring cycle in general. Because these guys, these athletes, are physically exhausted, having to perform and do their moves. Most wrestlers, if you do a show on the independents, you go around, do your show, rest and train as much as you can for a week or 3 or 4 days or 5 days or whatever you need. It seems WWE don't even do that. Exactly, that's why the 300-day-a-year schedule is there. They don't see their families a lot. And this is what dislodges WWE away from the rest of the wrestling world to me, where they're trying to do too much in so little time. And having 2 pay-per-views in October highlights that. They're trying to do too much in little time, which is why Vengeance got so low buy rates. It got such a low buy rate because they were trying to squeeze a month worth of promos, a month worth of build-up. You used to wonder every week if people beat each other up in the back and make you think, oh, will they make it to the pay-per-view? Will they be able to wrestle for the title that they want and desire? Will they be able to fight off all the odds? It gave that aspect of build. And with 2 weeks of building, it never works. Because you don't get that excitement. You don't get that intensity brewing inside you. And it also shows on their faces, the wrestlers' faces, when they know they're rushing it. They're trying their hardest to keep in character, but they're saying, I could stretch this out for a while and continue my dominant streak, going up and beating people up, and then facing one guy at a pay-per-view who I know I could beat, but he can also beat me, and the fans know it, they're going to get behind him, and that's going to be something to build on. They could do that with ease. They could easily build it out more, but if WWE just take a look at the reality of things, you can't just go on a touring cycle all the time. I know you have fans worldwide, but if you want to really for the benefit of everyone else, just axe some places on your touring schedule. Then, when you go to those places, you'll be able to get record amounts of crowds. Because I think it was, 2 years ago, WWE went back to Australia for the first time in a couple of years. And the fans came out in their droves. They were in there selling out arenas across the country. Now think about it. You cut out a shitload of places from your international touring cycle, you will be able to generate a shitload more money for yourself. Wouldn't you? And same for the pay-per-view market. Cut the pay-per-views down a bit. I'm sure at the moment only cut one and I'd actually be happy. If you are going to cut it even more and bring back the brand extension and make Raw and SmackDown their own pay-per-views just to make the right amount of build work for 2 months per show, apart from a Big 4 show when you've only got 4 weeks. Do what you can to make your product be a little more realistic in what you're doing, Vince. Because this is obviously showing, if you try and do too much, it is obviously going to show that you are running out of ideas, you're trying to push too much on people, and it just doesn't work. And guys, I'm going to leave it there. I've got to go to bed. I've got to get up for college in 7 hours. I've got to rest this throat. I've got to rest this throat and chest. Because I keep talking and fuck it. It's gonna hit me eventually, I'm sure. And I'll be back for my WWE 12 in-depth review on the Sunday. Hope you're all there for that. If you like this video, subscribe up there if you haven't already, and comment if you want to. I will reply to as many as I possibly can. I'll be free for tomorrow for quite a bit because I've done most of my film studies coursework. I'll be a bit free. Yeah! Guys, I've been Queen Crazy. You've been people watching. This is a special little breaking thing on Vengeance's record low buy rate and the touring cycle and pay-per-view schedule as a whole. And guys, if you want to see me do any more of these impromptu vids out of nowhere, again, comment section. Or click on that thing and inbox me. I'm always looking for suggestions on how to improve my product. Guys, I'll see you on Sunday. Cheers.